Welcome back to Rome Boys. On this episode, we on the road.
Oh, here we go.
So we're traveling on the road. We're on our way to Sonora. So we thought, let's just record a little more conversation on the way there.
Yes.
Talk about what we're going to talk about today. What are we supposed to be talking about tonight?
So we're supposed to be talking about how to help people come back to the church, how to reinvigorate the parish and get people back to Mass, and catch the parish on fire. So what's your initial thoughts on that, Joe, of just getting people back?
Well, let's stay away from matches and gasoline.
Yeah, that's a good
little
advice.
arson is probably not the way to do it.
Yeah.
But I kind of take the I remember one book that I read was talking about evangelizing Catholics. By the end of the book, you realize the person that you needed to evangelize was yourself.
Yes.
And I think that where we really kind of need to start. I mean, because as you know, we had the interview with Father Larry, and he talked about constipated Catholics. And I just remember looking around the room a couple Sundays ago. I was sitting in Mass, and I was looking around, just stopped and started looking around. Everybody just looks so bored.
They're not meditating? They're not
They
deeply in
just
prayer?
like, and I was one of them too.
Yeah.
Because my 2-year-old was pushing my buttons that day, and I was just ready to bring him
It
up.
seems like also like that's a Saturday night crowd. I'm not talking about just our parish. Like a lot of Saturday night crowds are kind of like down a little bit. Where Sunday's a little bit more joyful. You get a little bit more life.
I guess.
I don't know, but
Well, I mean, I brought this up to the deacon, and he said, during communion, he notices a lot more smiling, at least when, they're coming up for their communion. I was like, that's encouraging. He goes, I don't know if they're smiling at me,
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
or if they're just smiling in general, because that's, they know they're receiving Jesus.
let's hope so.
Let's hope it's that, but, that was encouraging to hear that, there are some people smiling.
Yes. I mean, we have to be more positive. If you want to bring people back, we need to be a joy-filled church.
Right.
One that is, welcoming, hospitable. Across the United States, when I've traveled with different groups or people or with my family, most of the time I wouldn't say like that was a welcoming parish.
Right.
I remember I was in college, I went to Saturday night Mass, and I went with one of my friends who was Pentecostal. And that is the most welcoming church I've ever been in. They welcomed me when I was there, while I was there, sitting in the church, and when I left. So
Sure.
I felt that presence. So I think if you want to get people back, we got to be a joy-filled place where people smiling from when you get there to when you leave.
Well, I mean, isn't that why people leave to go to these feel-good churches? Because they feel good being there. And when you look around the room and you see, I used to have, when we were running around in our 20s when we went to church, my buddies didn't like going to my church. Because they were like, man, all the old ladies and old men, they just stare at you like, what are you doing here? Not very welcoming at all.
Right.
And they didn't want to go because they just felt like they were being stared at by these old people. It's like, what are you doing in my pew? Get out of my pew.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it becomes, the problem is where this is my church, right? The constipated Catholic. This is my church. I was born here. I was raised
Cultural
here.
Catholic, yes.
Yeah. And don't you change my church? It's not your church.
That's not how Jesus was. He was changing things left and right, every other second, always moving and shaking and stirring things up. I mean, watch the Chosen series, you see that come alive as you watch it. I think I totally agree. We really need to be looking at ourselves. And I think before we can evangelize the people out there, we have to make sure that whoever's in the pews currently knows Jesus and loves Jesus, has a relationship with him, and loves the Catholic faith, is deeply in fire. Because honestly, the vast majority of parishes are warm bodies. People filling pews, people there to check it off on the checklist, and we have to make disciples of the people that are there. Now, if your parish is on fire and the people are on the faith, then your call is to go out and bring people in. So, and it has to be the little old lady.
Hey, I guess they're right. Senior citizens, although slow and dangerous behind the wheel, can still serve a purpose.
I'll be right back. Don't you go dying on me.
It has to be all different ages. We can't assume people have been evangelized.
Yeah.
They've been catechized, which means they know the do's and don'ts, and they know what the catechism says, but they have not been evangelized. And we get that wrong in our church.
Right.
We focus way too much on catechesis and not evangelization. Like for me, Tony the teacher, I love teaching the faith, but I'm not the first person, I'm not the best at bringing people in. That's the evangelizer. And then once they're excited, I love teaching them about the faith. So we all have to use our gifts and our talents and try our best to turn our parish into an evangelization parish, but a new evangelization parish where we get the people that are there. We can't assume even Father and the deacons and the DRE and the youth minister have been evangelized, because statistics show that a lot have not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to that relationship. That's what evangelization is having a living relationship with Jesus.
You believe in Jesus. Yes, I do. Well, you're going to meet him.
And when you live that in your life, people want to be around that.
Yes.
I remember whenever I went on my first Acts retreat, I'd been on a retreat before as a teenager, but this was like 2010. I didn't have my reversion until like 14, 14. And anyway, at that retreat, I had an encounter with Jesus. Now I couldn't pinpoint it to like this happened,
Sure.
this moment happened, and it was just an encounter that I probably didn't even realize I had.
Right.
And before I went, like I said, this was before my reversion, and my wife was still a Catholic, where she still held on her Baptist roots, but had become a Catholic.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
And she said, don't expect me to go on one of these retreats. She goes, I ain't going. I said, that's fine. You do what you want. And so I went on the retreat. I got back and just went straight back into life. Just went back into the normal, go to work, come back, take care of the kids, go to bed. And start the next day, do it all over again. And it's about a week or two went by, and I was supposed to talk about Acts. What happens on Acts stays on Acts. And it was about a week, maybe 2 weeks later, she goes, all right, I'm going to go on the women's retreat. I didn't say anything to her.
That was quick.
Yeah. I didn't say anything to her, didn't push her to go, didn't talk about it. And I said, really? How come? She goes, yeah, I want to go. What happened? She goes, you have something,
Yes.
and I want it.
She saw a change in you.
She did. And see, so if we were to live our Catholic faith with joy, not just at church, but in our regular life, and not be afraid to talk about being a Catholic, people would be knocking down the doors trying to get in. What'd you do?
Right. And we as the prayer warriors in the church need to be on our knees. I mean, if we believe it's Jesus Christ present in the tabernacle, then why don't we act like it? Why aren't we there? Why are so few churches have adoration? And if they do, it's so infrequent. If we believe, we should be adoring. So if we want to bring back people into the pews, we got to pray first.
Say your prayers, you long-eared galoot!
We have to have those prayer warriors on our knees, signing up for holy hours, processions, adoration, get that moving. And so we can pray as a church to move that direction. Also, most churches don't have a mission. They don't have a goal. They're not striving for anything. Their mission is to make it to the next Sunday, and the priest is getting this homily together, and people are going to show up. But where are we going? What are we doing? What are we moving towards? Are we moving towards saving souls? Are we moving towards just the next potluck? What's the point? So I think all activities, whether it's the parish council or it's the everyday Joe in the pew, needs to know, where is this ship being steered to? Where are we moving towards? And there hasn't been a parish that I have belonged to my whole life that I knew this is the mission, with the priest leading and the deacons and everybody else moving towards a direction. Also, like 4 to 96% of parishes across our country, evangelization is not a word they even say. It's not even an option of what they do in the parish. So Protestants, though, it's the opposite. The vast majority of Protestant Christians are all about evangelization as the priority. So we have got that wrong, and Protestants have got that right.
Kowalski, remember our little talk about true but unhelpful comments?
Going out and spreading the gospel, leading people to Jesus.
I mean, before any of the rules, before any of the catechesis, makes any sense or it's worth living, it's again having that relationship, and that's where you know, like you said, the Protestants focus on the relationship, but then they kind of lose. They're lacking in the, you know, without catechesis, you can make God into whoever you want him to be.
Sure.
You know, so they have that evangelization. They have a relationship with him, but it's kind of one-sided to where this is him to me.
I wonder if that's an American Catholicism thing. I'm sure it's all across the world, because we react to what the Protestants have done in the founding of this country, and they were all about that, so we have to be different. We have to, you know, how are Catholics different than a Presbyterian and Anglican? But then we forget about, hey, step one is knowing Jesus, and then step two, hopefully we love the Catholic faith and why the Eucharist and the sacraments that Jesus left lead us to salvation, lead us to heaven. So, but I wonder how many Catholics don't know Jesus Christ at a deep personal level.
Yeah, it's like it's that whole knowing who Jesus is versus knowing Jesus. You know, we can know who Jesus is on, you know, from the Bible, from these TV shows that we get to watch, and all these things. But do we really know him personally? Do you know him like you know your kids? Do you know him like you know your wife?
I know each one of you like I know my own smell.
I mean, we don't, like you said, most Catholics don't know Jesus.
A recent study came out that 17% of Catholics in the United States attend weekly Mass. 17%. And
Really?
You know, a couple of decades ago, it was 30, 40, 50%. Well, not that long ago has this decline happened. In Nigeria, it's 94% of Catholics go to Mass on Sundays and holy days. So I did the math, and I said, you count up all the hours of the year, and you count up going to Mass once a week and holy days, it equals 0.002% of your time if you go to Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation. I mean, that's even a long-winded preacher. It might go up to 0.004, but it's nothing for God. And like, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't get anything out of Mass. Well, what are you putting into it? Like, are you even showing up? Like, and are you there for Him, for what He's done for us? I mean, as we look at the cross, He died for us. He became one of us, and then He becomes food for us to eat. And then we ask, we're bored, you know, we don't want to be there. The singing's bad, the crying baby. No, you're there for Him. And a lot of people just don't know that. They're in a different place. So that's our job, to evangelize, to help people to encounter the living God. Start with the people that you know, family members, friends, but not even that. Don't go tackle the whole world. One person at a time. You know, what's that person that you can try to, plant the seed?
I've heard that, we're talking about, I don't get anything out of Mass. What are you putting into it? But, a lot of times, like you said, the screaming babies, or maybe the choir's not so good, or maybe the priest not a very good homilist, or whatever. And I've heard somebody say, I forget which priest said it, it's like, if you go to Mass and you get something out of it, that was God's gift to you.
Yes.
If you go and it's absolutely boring and you get nothing out of it, that was your gift to God.
Amen.
So, and again, we can't leave.
Yeah.
When you realize and you come to that relationship with Jesus, you have that joy in your heart, knowing that is Him in the Eucharist. How could you leave?
Right.
It's impossible. How can you leave Jesus? And I think that goes into the point of the evangelization part. No relationship with Him. Why would you believe it?
Right. I did a parish mission recently, and I said, I can't think of one person on the face of the earth that's ever publicly said, I left the Catholic Church, or a person that we know or have heard of, and they believed in the real presence of the Eucharist. Once you believe, you're there.
You're hooked.
But that's the thing, a lot of people don't. So let's do our part to get people to think that question. Like Catholic grade school, Catholic high school for me, no one ever said it was really Jesus. We didn't have adoration. So let's get out there and assume nothing. Just because someone says they're Catholic, do they know Jesus? If they are nothing, fine. Maybe even easier to evangelize them because you're starting from scratch. But that's the kicker, to get them to fall in love with the Savior of the world. The Protestants say have a personal relationship with Jesus. How much more personal is it to eat Him? I mean, I was trying to meditate, and believe me, this does not happen at every Mass at all, like 1 in 1,000. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm chewing on, swallowing, going into my stomach God. I mean, just think about that for a few moments. What? why would he do that for love of me? Gosh, I mean, who am I? I'm not worthy that you should enter into my roof. But praise God, he has chosen us to be able to do that. And it's pure gift, pure grace.
When you don't believe that it's truly him present in the Eucharist, it's easy to leave.
Yeah.
Why would you stay?
Right.
Why would you stay? There's no reason to.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much stuff going on in the church that we can easily just walk away from it, except for when you truly believe that he's present in the Eucharist. Then there's no way you can leave.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah, pick your moment in church history where things are rock bottom. They're going to look back at our time period, and it's definitely low, probably not the lowest, but in the direction we're moving. But who cares? Whatever happens in the church, what about you and your family? What about your own personal soul? How are you doing and staying growing and focusing on that relationship that Joe mentioned? So, and then frequent confession too. Like the lines to confession are just like, come on, people. Like, I don't know about you, but like, dude, like, every day I'm sinning so many times that I need to get that off my soul so I can evangelize. I make it a priority before we do our talks to get to confession, at least a day or a few days before, because there's no telling what's going to come out of this mouth that's bad. But with the grace of God, he can at least, shut me down when I'm going to say something dumb.
That's a good idea.
How can you argue with that?
I think one thing that we as a universal church, the whole Catholic Church, and this of course starts with individual churches and dioceses and countries and throughout the world, continents, whatever else, need to realize that we are no longer in Christendom, which is a fancy word for basically saying, people will come to us, we can kind of kick back and just have maintenance mode. Like, people will come, they'll be here, we'll give them the Eucharist, they'll leave, and they'll come back next week. That's not the case. People are leaving left and right. The next generations that are coming are less and less people that are wanting Jesus or going to church or even care about it. So we need to move from maintenance to mission. The early apostles, they went out and they died for their faith. They were witnesses for the faith. That's what martyr means, to be a witness. And so we're no longer kick back and sit in your pew and relax. Like, we need to be aware that the church is being persecuted. The church is, struggling, and it's our job to do what we can to go on mission mode. So I always encourage people to do one maintenance thing for the church and one mission thing for the church. People got to see Catholics. For Rome Boys, with our videos, hopefully we're reaching a broad audience. With our posts that people are sharing, God willing, it could go any direction. And with the billboards that we're putting up, a lot of people are seeing it. Those are mission types of things. So what can you do as far as mission? Being in the community, people seeing you and your outward witness. And then yes, take care of the church. Be the lector, the extraordinary minister, clean the church, mow the grass, fine. But we have too much maintenance, and we need to be more focused on the mission.
That's the fact, Jack! That's a fact, Jack!
For sure. Yeah, maintenance. Everybody needs somebody to mow the grass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clean the toilets.
Exactly.
All that stuff. Which is all good and important if you want to do that for the church. But yeah, the main focus is to get souls to heaven. So what are you doing to get souls to heaven?
I would love to ask every Catholic in the world that question. Did you know your parish, your church, exists to get people to heaven? And do you see that happening on a regular basis? Every type of thing, activity that occurs in this parish, is it about saving souls?
Yeah. And again, what are you doing it for them? Who are you doing it for?
Amen.
Are you doing it for him, or are you doing it for your own glory?
Right.
Yeah, no.
Treasure in heaven.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I keep telling myself. It's not about here, it's about up there.
It's not about us.
Yes.
Well, thank y'all for joining us for On the Road.